Warm welcome to you from Geneva, Switzerland. I'm Rida Sadki, and I'm here with Charlotte Mbu. Charlotte, good morning to you. Good afternoon, good evening to all of the participants, learners in this course. How are you doing?
Good morning, Rida. Afternoon, evening, everyone. I'm doing great. Thank you. And it's a pleasure to be here.
All right, and we'll be introducing the WHO subject matter experts in a minute. First, some critical information that you are likely to need if you have not yet joined the Telegram groups for the course. This is highly recommended. Let me just make sure. Yeah, so this is this should be the link that you need. Charlotte, if you could please double check that, as we had some issues with the first link that we shared, which you were supposed to use by Wednesday, has now expired. So if you tried on Thursday, Friday to use that link, you need to use the link we've just posted in the chat here. Now, one thing, if you cannot hear me, so let me see how many people. Yes, so Maya, Bebe, and Sorsa, and Melese. So Charlotte, if you could send them messages making the point that right now they're not connected to the audio, so they need to do that, especially Maya. Now, many of you are very much used to this medium, to this methodology. So second is, if you have poor connectivity, I'm going to reshare again the let me see, the session 1 slides, and it is a big file. It is 10 megabytes, as well as the presentation that Anna Minta will be making in a few minutes to introduce the topic, the program. Now, all of these files have already been shared by email as attachments, in the Telegram channels, by email again, and then sharing them now in the chat. So make sure you do have these available. Let me see, where is the, yes. And then what you'll need today is the rapporteur template. So if you have poor connectivity, use the slides to follow along and then stop incoming video. That should help. Last, a third sort of item is, in order to speak or to request to speak, you will need to raise your hand. Do not simply unmute yourselves, unless Charlotte or I say so, but we will be looking to the people who raise hands. Unfortunately, we're not always able to determine sort of who raised their hands first. We do have some rules, some ground rules about who should speak in terms of balance between countries and gender. Now, we ask that you block incoming calls during the session. We cannot provide a single instruction on how to do that, because every device is different. But there is a way by going to your phone settings, if you're using your phone, and many of you are for connectivity, to block incoming calls. Otherwise, you're going to get disconnected from Zoom, and you may not be able to rejoin, or you may have to sit in the waiting room until we're able to bring you back in. So this session and the session tomorrow really is premised on your active participation. So you'll see there are ways in which the rapporteurs will be verifying your attendance and your participation. So not just that you're sitting in the Zoom room, but you're actively contributing to the activities. Now, that is it for the preamble. We now move to what we call the opening ceremony. We'll be hearing messages, welcome messages from Dr. Anindya Sekar-Bose, a team lead for vaccine preventable disease surveillance and risk assessment team at headquarters at WHO. Be hearing from Anna Minta, surveillance officer in that SRA team, also from headquarters. Jill Milbal, who's technical officer for capacity building at WHO, and then be giving you some additional information. So let us start with Dr. Anindya Sekar-Bose. I believe you should be by now a co-host. Okay, let me make you a co-host again and bring the spotlight to your camera. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Rida. So just to introduce myself, I'm Dr. Anindya Sekar-Bose, as Rida said. I'm the team lead of the WHO IVB department. Within that, there's a team of PPD surveillance and risk assessment, SRA in short, where Anna and I work together. And I'm very happy and really welcome you and congratulate you who are part of this course. And this is a fantastic journey, I think, that we will take together. It's not really the usual conventional way of learning. And I think it's really a learning journey that we will take together. Our team's mission, just in one or two sentences, is that we would really like to have a system of comprehensive vaccine preventable disease surveillance across the world in countries that need it most, and we provide the technical assistance for that. This has become all the more imperative because of the many gaps that we have seen in the recent pandemic in surveillance capacities, in surveillance capabilities, as well as intelligence, surveillance intelligence handling, etc. I'd just like to end by sort of drawing your attention to the fact that, as far as I can understand, this course is not really a conventional learning. It's a process to encourage, I think, critical thinking. So it is not all information recall or information reproduction. This will depend very much on your active participation in your churning in your mind the information that you receive and collect, and from there to interpret it and then solve the problem at your own level. And for me, I think the first step in any learning is an acknowledgement in the mind that I'm ignorant, that I do not know, my knowledge is limited. And if I do that, then I'm open to learning from my peers. And if my peer does the same thing, then they are open to learning from me. So that, I think, is a critical component of the mental attitude and thinking in this course, which depends so much on peer-to-peer learning. So I welcome you all, and I wish that we will take a very successful journey together over the next few days. Thank you. Over to you, Reda.
Thank you very much indeed. Let's go now to Anna Minta.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I also want to welcome you, and I'm very excited to have you join the course. You will hear from me shortly, so I will keep my welcome remarks short. But again, I really look forward to working with you all. Thank you.
Okay, that was very short. Thank you, Anna. Let's proceed. There is some critical information that we want to share with you before we hear from Anna. So this is to provide some framing for the course, and also for you to get a sense of who else is here, who is with you, taking this course with you, and emphasizing the critical role that each of you has in securing a high quality and sustainable surveillance system for VPDs. Now, very pleased and honored to introduce a distinguished range of subject matter experts who are contributing to the course in both French and English. So in some cases, you may not see some of the Francophone subject matter experts, but they're very much part of the course, of course. Second is a point about the pedagogy. As Dr. Anindya Sekar-Bose said, we are using a pedagogy that may be a little bit shocking for you if you are used to the conventional modalities of presentations followed maybe by some question and answer session, for example. We're going to move very quickly, and we are going to challenge you. We are going to pressure test how you do, not only to acquire information, but also to apply it in situ as you work to the real world challenges that you face today. To emphasize the group, the uniqueness of the group that is in the room today, we had 496 applications received primarily through WHO's network. And then of those, less than 1 in 4, 120 learners were actually accepted into the course. Now, you may want to know which countries, so we have that for you here. And you can see that there are large groups from a couple of countries, but most of you have between 1 and 5 learners who are participating, which places, I would say, an additional level of responsibility on your shoulders if you are the sole representative from your country who is going to be the first in your country to actually have the opportunity to learn, practice, work towards mastery of WHO's very latest guidance on vaccine preventable disease surveillance. Now, in terms of who we are in the course, you can see there were 120 selected, with a good mix between people working at international, national, multi-country, and regional levels. So that's within the country. Organizational affiliation, you can see the two largest groups are from the Ministry of Health and from the WHO country offices. In terms of gender, there are 31 women and 89 men participating, and when you can see the age distribution on the right. Now, the years of experience, this list is not quite in the right order, but you can see that there's a broad range. And I would ask for those of you who are very senior in VPD surveillance to actually use that experience to mentor, to support, to help your colleagues who do not have the same experience that you have. And again, if you are new to VPD surveillance, do not be wary of coming into this advanced course. WHO did not select you by accident. There's a careful process of selection used by WHO to bring you into this course. So we do expect you to challenge and stretch in order to achieve the goals of this course. Now, of the 5 main objectives, you can see here the split between those of you, a little bit more than a third, who said that sustainable financing is the topic most challenging in your context. Information systems comes next, then workforce, then laboratory, then applied research. So, very quickly, I'm going to try to summarize what you will need in order to succeed in this in the course. So, first of all, you've received this warning in writing, and I don't want to be overly dramatic, but this is an advanced level course, and the key is really acceleration. Typically, Scholar courses in the past, which we've done with the World Health Organization, have been done over the course of 6, 8, or 10 weeks. In this course, we are condensing that down into a 2-week process. This is just part and parcel of the world we live in, needing to go faster in order to do better. And it is therefore your responsibility to ensure that you follow along. And because of the peer review process, deadlines are strict, and we will not be able to grant extensions. We recognize that means some of you, despite your best effort, may not be able to finish the course, but that is part and parcel of this being an advanced course. Now, we will be working in small groups, as well as focusing as individually on each of you on your course project. And let me be clear, the goal of the course is not these Zoom sessions. The Zoom sessions are there to help you, support you, scaffold your work on the individual course project. The main deliverable in this course is to develop a quality action plan, the best that you can in the limited time that you have. And the time is very limited. The first deadline is coming up on the 14th of July. So there are 2 parts of the course. You have the course resource folder. We've shared with you the session, the course program. You should have by now reviewed all these documents. If not, I urge you to do so as soon as you can. And then in terms of the coursework, what you have before you are the certification requirements. Again, all of these have been shared with you ahead, were shared last Monday, and then shared via multiple channels. In case you missed them the first time, they came with your letter of acceptance. And then on Friday, we shared the final version of the slide deck. In the group work, so today and tomorrow, we'll be working on real-world challenges. You submitted challenges. We've shared them back with you in the slide deck, and that's what we'll be focusing on. So the challenges that you bring to the table, together with the best available, newest guidance from the World Health Organization, that is what will be making this course, the substance, the heart and soul of this course will be that conjunction of the best available guidance with the real-world challenges that you face. The individual work, we've shared what's called the rubric, as well as a template document with you. Your challenge is to very quickly develop an action plan. Think of it as the kind of assignment you get when it is not in your work plan, you did not expect this at all, and your boss asks you to, within the next 3 days, to do something that is actually quite stressful and intensive, but he or she has asked you to do it, and you need to deliver the result. So you have 3 days to develop an action plan where, in an ideal world, you would probably want at least a week, preferably 2 or 3 or 4 weeks to balance out with the rest of your workload. But just like in the real world, sometimes requests will come on an emergency basis, and that time pressure is a key part of the learning process. You will find that what learners report is that having that time pressure for those who are able to face up to it actually significantly accelerates the learning. And people tell us, I saved so much time because I did in 3 days what I thought would take me weeks to do, and I turned out to be able to do more than I thought was possible. So again, the course resource folder, and Charlotte, if you could share the link, the link to that folder, that is the quick overview of what's in the slide deck. Now, we are going to spend the next 5 minutes, we're at 9:15 in Geneva, following along with the course program in a remote coffee. So we will be going into breakout rooms. Let's see, so we'll have breakout rooms with, let's see, I have to recreate these, and this time, so we have, let's see, let's have 10 breakout rooms, and we're going to save these. And these should be the people, except for late joiners, that you will be working with throughout the sessions today, unless you get disconnected. So you'll now have 3 minutes to go into the breakout room and again meet a new set of people. For those of you who joined at 8:30, you may see people that you have seen before. This time, though, these are the individuals that you will be working with. The breakout room should be stable. Don't be surprised if they're not. If you find yourself in a different breakout room, adjust. You should be now going to the breakout rooms. So your purpose is simply to introduce yourselves to each other, but this time knowing that you'll be working together. All right, welcome back. So in principle, these should be the stable groups that you will find. These are the individuals you'll be working with today, unless you get disconnected. There may be some changes at some point, but we have another 25 seconds before everyone comes back, and then we'll be going into the only presentation of the guidance document of the Global Strategy and Comprehensive Vaccine Preventable Disease Surveillance. So in just a few seconds, everyone should be back. Okay, wonderful. So let's see. Yeah, here. Just queue up the presentation and we should be able to. All right, Anaminta, the floor is yours, and yes, we'll have to do this the old-fashioned way. I'm happy to be your slide taker.
No problem.
Here are the slides. I'll spotlight them for everyone. Okay.
Great. So good morning, everyone. As I mentioned, my name is Dr. Anna Minta, and I'm a medical epidemiologist on the Vaccine Preventable Diseases Surveillance and Risk Assessment team within India, both as the team lead. So I'm very happy that you have joined the course, and I believe that we will all learn from each other as we think about ways to improve the surveillance system in our individual contexts. So to get us started, today I will be giving you a brief overview of the Global Strategy on Comprehensive VPD Surveillance. So before we begin though, I want to take us back to basics and remind ourselves, what is public health surveillance? And just a reminder that it is the ongoing systematic identification, collection, collation, analysis, and interpretation of disease occurrence and public health event data to take timely and robust action. It includes the timely dissemination of resulting information for effective and appropriate action, and is essential for planning, implementation, and evaluation of public health practice. So specifically for VPD surveillance, it's vitally important for its potential to inform policy and monitor immunization programs, including vaccine introduction, coverage, and potential use for outbreak response. VPD surveillance is also able to detect changes in the epidemiology of VPDs over time due to vaccine use and other preventive measures. The objectives of a surveillance system should dictate its design rather than vice versa. And there's a phrase that says you only find what you are looking for, which I think describes surveillance very well. Next slide, please. VPD surveillance is an integral part of the Immunization Agenda 2030, which I know most of you are familiar with. IA 2030 proposes a strategic framework, and VPD surveillance is anchored in it through two strategic priorities. Strategic Priority 1.3, which is focused on building and strengthening comprehensive VPD surveillance as a component of the national public health surveillance system supported by strong, reliable laboratory networks. And Strategic Priority 5.1, which is focused on timely detection of and response to outbreaks. In both of these strategic priorities, VPD surveillance informs decisions and actions. So these are the two indicators that we are striving to improve over this decade. Next slide, please. The current VPD surveillance system is fragmented. Currently, we have national case-based surveillance for polio, measles, and neonatal tetanus in most countries. In some countries, we may also have sentinel case-based surveillance for one or more of a variety of diseases. For both types of disease-specific surveillance systems, there is investigation of all cases within a defined catchment area, laboratory confirmation, except for certain diseases like tetanus, and collection of individual level data, which should be used regularly for immunization program management. And this is what you see at the top left of the slide. On the top right, you can see that in parallel, we also have national notifiable disease reporting from health facilities, and in some cases, outbreak or event-based surveillance to capture reports from the community and media. These are general systems that detect a number of diseases. In these settings, detective VPD outbreaks may be investigated, but there's limited lab confirmation and reporting of only aggregate data, which is of limited use for decision-making by immunization programs. At the bottom, you see that the polio program currently supports much of the surveillance infrastructure in many countries, especially lab networks, surveillance officers, and field investigations. And it's important to recognize the risk of losing these resources as part of the polio transition. And then at the bottom right, you can see other challenges. So beyond this challenge, we can see that we have fragmented or parallel VPD surveillance systems. Most of the data are not being fit for use. Very few diseases have robust surveillance, and we have a weak laboratory capacity for some, particularly bacterial diseases. Next slide. So what is comprehensive VPD surveillance? We can define it, at the top you'll see, as the country, regional, and global systems that are required to meet the minimal WHO recommended standards for surveillance for a set of priority VPDs, with integration of surveillance functions across other diseases where possible. To describe more, we can say that comprehensive surveillance in the first blue bar will include more VPDs based on country priorities, and that for most diseases, This will include collection of individual level data and laboratory confirmation. In the green, we can see that the design of a comprehensive surveillance system could include a mix of nationwide case-based aggregate and sentinel surveillance based on specific surveillance objectives, which again should drive the design of the system rather than the other way around. And then in gray, you can see that the strategy to achieve this would include integration and adaptation of existing systems where possible, and common VPD surveillance support functions and funding. In orange, you can see that greater emphasis would be placed on the use of VPD surveillance data for routine program monitoring and visualizing data to facilitate understanding. Comprehensive VPD surveillance would be emphasized as an essential tool for EPI program decision-making and response. Next slide. This slide summarizes the components of comprehensive VPD surveillance in another way. So just to drive home the point, at minimum, the comprehensive VPD surveillance would include all of the VPDs that have a global surveillance mandate, such as elimination agendas, all of the VPDs with international health regulation targeted diseases, and then other regional and country priorities as indicated. They would meet the minimal WHO recommended surveillance requirements for each VPD, provide consistent reporting of surveillance data, even in the absence of cases, also known as zero reporting, ensure representative and complete detection of diseases among intended populations, reliably confirm disease by laboratory testing, and collect data relevant for decision-making in an efficient and timely manner. Next slide. So there's a lot going on in this slide, so I'll go through it step by step. This is to help us better visualize how we could build comprehensive VPD surveillance. So we start with the various surveillance system platforms in a country. As I mentioned, there are different types of surveillance. The answer is not that we only need one type of surveillance that should cover everything, but rather that we would have integration of the support functions, which you'll see at the bottom of the slide. Governance, program management, workforce capacity, logistics and communication, laboratory, supervision, monitoring and evaluation, and coordination that underpin the different types of surveillance. Next slide. To take us back to the way that the Global Comprehensive VPD Surveillance Strategy fits into IA 2030, the four core principles are the same. So the surveillance should be people-focused. Surveillance is embedded in and supported by communities and healthcare workers and is flexible to adapt to changing needs. It is country-owned. Their surveillance activities are driven by individual country needs and sustained by countries. It's partnership-based. Surveillance is underpinned by cross-sectoral collaborations nationally and globally, and data-guided. Surveillance and lab data are accessible and fit for purpose to drive national decision-making and programmatic action and use innovative techniques. Next slide. The overall aim of the Global Comprehensive VPD Surveillance Strategy is to nurture the development of country-owned comprehensive VPD surveillance systems. The 5 main objectives are very key for you to remember. Number 1, develop a workforce that's appropriately trained in surveillance core competencies, including data analysis. Strengthen and expand public health laboratory networks. Develop sustainable, interoperable VPD surveillance information systems to support collection, analysis, sharing, and programmatic use of data. Conduct operational research and generate evidence to enhance and monitor the quality of surveillance systems and ability to adapt to new data needs, such as for new vaccines. And promote sustainable financing and increase domestic government support for core surveillance activities. Next slide. So after having read the background material that you were provided and hearing this overview, which summarized their key document, you now have the chance to proceed with the course as has been described to see what you can do to ensure that your VPD systems are comprehensive and integrated. And in this course, you will focus on how your surveillance system can achieve the goals that I outlined from the VPD strategy for workforce, laboratory, information systems, applied research and/or sustainable financing. Next slide. So thank you and good luck with the course.
Thank you very much, Anna Minta. We now open up for questions. So Charlotte has been prompting you to prepare and share your questions. We're not using Zoom webinar, so we do not have the Q&A feature. So we'll be looking for questions in the chat. We'll answer questions until the 45-minute mark. And then at 45, we'll be actually diving into some of the best practices and lessons learned that course participants shared in their application. Charlotte, over to you. Who shall we hear from first?
We have two questions already in the chat. Reda, the first question is from Mohammed Imran Qureshi, who says, what is the difference between, I think he typed the question in the chat because he's having connectivity issues. So he asks, what is the difference between specific VPD and public health importance event surveillance?
Okay, if I understand the question correctly, for what I was discussing specific VPD, so there are so many vaccine preventable diseases, and depending on the context, some may have a higher public health importance than others. And for those, we usually talk about the prevalence of the disease, the incidence, the ability of a vaccine that can decrease the prevalence or the incidence, and also the age groups that might be involved. So, there's so many different vaccine preventable diseases, and there's specific types of surveillance that work best for each one, or that are recommended by the WHO surveillance standards. And then for public health importance event surveillance, that could mean, for example, the international health regulations. There are some vaccine preventable diseases that have to be reported, no matter what, even if there's one case, or if there's an outbreak, for example, they might need to be reported. So if I understand the question correctly, there are just different importance levels that are given to vaccine preventable diseases based on the country context, because it's not possible usually to have a perfect surveillance system for every single VPD. So you have to prioritize based on your country context. Maybe as an example, I can say in some countries where something like typhoid is not very common except in travelers, they may have a different surveillance system than a country where typhoid is endemic, for example. So hopefully that addressed the question.
Okay, thank you, Anna. So we have Fitri Meles Hagos, whose hand is raised. So I'll turn towards Fitri before we come back to the other questions that are in the chat. Fitri, over to you, and please do start by introducing yourself.
Thank you so much, Charlotte, for the opportunity. My name is Fitri Meles. I'm a STOP consultant in Malawi. And I thank Dr. Anna also for the clear presentation. Thank you. So my question is like, how is the difference between the comprehensive, IDSR and the vaccine preventable disease surveillance? How do they work together? How they are different? Because in countries you clearly see a kind of confusion, like VBDP surveillance as a separate section, and in some maybe as a part of the IDSR. And I really want to understand how countries, they really need to work on this in collaboration, as well as, I don't know, in the difference. The other thing is with this really sustainable financing for this vaccine preventable disease surveillance, as you mentioned, the surveillance are really running on this polio eradication financing, most of the vaccine preventable disease surveillance. So this ramp down of budgets for polio, how do you think countries need to finance this vaccine preventable disease surveillances? Thank you so much. I think these are the two questions I have.
Okay. Thank you. So those are very good questions, and those are also some of the things that I look forward to hearing from the different participants, because it varies a lot by country. So for example, IDSR, not every region has IDSR, not every country uses IDSR. So it's basically integrated disease surveillance. It includes diseases that are not vaccine preventable, but that typically, I would say you want to respond to pretty urgently. So for example, in some countries, there might be a separate team, like the surveillance team, that reports into IDSR maybe every week or every month. Then there's also surveillance that's focused specifically on vaccine preventable diseases. It may or may not be the same people. They may or may not use the same reporting tools to monitor these diseases. And sometimes they may have case-based surveillance, which means, for example, you hear there's a child with fever and rash. You go and do the investigation, test them for measles and rubella. Measles first, you find out it's measles, and you report it that way. Versus in other cases, you may keep a list, like last month, there were 50 patients with a certain disease, and you don't have the specific information about every patient. So that's aggregate reporting. So there are different types of surveillance systems. IDSR fits in the group of surveillance systems. And I think the point you described is key, that it's not always the same people who are collecting the information, and they're not reported the same way. So that's actually a great question as to how to integrate these systems. They may have slightly different goals, because the goal of vaccine preventable disease surveillance, as I mentioned, is to improve the immunization program, whereas the goal of something like IDSR may be more to respond to outbreaks, for example, for diseases that may not be vaccine preventable. So the response to the outbreak may be something besides a vaccine. So basically, I can't answer your question specifically. It depends on the context, but I would really like everyone to think about that, especially if you have IDSR in your country, because there can be some integration of those core functions, and you can think about how that might work, whether it's the people who are doing the investigating, whether it's the reporting system, the information system, and also the financing, which you mentioned. That's another huge topic that varies a lot by country as well. So I don't have one specific example, but I can say, for example, if you have a surveillance officer who's going to people's houses and they hear about a case of acute flaccid paralysis, for example, and they're going to test the child to see if they have polio. Could that be the same person who also goes to the house if there's a child with fever and rash who needs to have specimens taken for measles, and the same person who does other kind of household visits, because it's the same activity, just for different diseases? So those are some of the things to think about as you go through the course. Thank you for the question.
Thank you so much, Anna, and thanks again, Fitri, for that question. There's so many questions in the chat. We have less than 5 minutes for that, but most of the questions are around resources and integration. So I'm going to ask the question that is not about that, it's about Sentinel Surveillance. So it came from Pamela says, Sentinel Surveillance is not very common in my region and country. When exactly is it required?
Okay, that's a great question. And I will at some point, if it's not in the materials, give you a link or give it to Retta and Charlotte for the WHO Vaccine Preventable Diseases Surveillance Standards, which describe when different types of surveillance are indicated. So in general, something like Sentinel Surveillance is for certain diseases where it would be cost prohibitive and not necessarily necessary to test every single person with a particular disease. One example is invasive bacterial diseases. So things like maybe meningitis, pneumococcal meningitis or Neisseria meningitis. In these situations, there are usually only a few labs who have the capacity to take cerebrospinal fluid culture or blood culture to test a patient who comes in with fever and signs of meningitis. So from a surveillance standpoint, Sentinel surveillance is when you have a few health facilities geographically located throughout your country or region, where children or adults with certain diseases are more likely to present, and where the lab is able to do the testing or to at least take the samples and save them and then send them to another reference lab. So for example, a child who has signs of meningitis would be critically ill. They would probably go to a tertiary health facility. And hopefully that tertiary health facility will have a lab that can do the blood culture and the cerebrospinal fluid culture. They can test it there and be able to have a diagnosis. And then the reporting mechanism in that case would go from that hospital probably to district, and then maybe province and to national, and eventually to the regions, and then to headquarters. So that's what Sentinel Surveillance is, just with one example. And I hope that answered your question. And like I said, I will make sure you have the link to the surveillance standards so you can read when you have time about the different types of surveillance and which VPDs are needed for which type of surveillance.
Thanks, Anna. Just one quick question before we continue. From Hanan Khalil, I'm taking the second question. She asks, is zero reporting still considered important when we have case-based reporting?
Okay, that's a great question. So yes, zero reporting is very important. I can just give you an example. At headquarters, we receive the surveillance data from the regions, of course, which they've taken from you all at the country level. And sometimes we may have a disease and then it's just blank for the number of cases. So when I look at that, I don't know, does that mean there were 0 cases? Does that mean the person forgot to fill in the number? Or what does it mean? I don't know. So if there is a 0 there, then I know for sure that the surveillance was done and there were no cases that were found. So yeah, zero reporting is extremely important, whether it's case-based or aggregate reporting.
Okay, thank you once again, Anna, and thanks to all those who are leaving their questions in the chat. If your questions has not been answered, don't worry, we'll share them with the SMEs so that they can provide written answers to those questions. I think I'm going to turn over to Reda for us to continue with our session.
Great, thank you, Charlotte. And so we now dive in to your experiences and your challenges, starting actually with best practices and lessons learned. So this is directly from what you shared in your applications. And Charlotte is actually the one who put together from the applications the summaries that we're going to share and discuss. So in this section, we're going to spend 25 minutes looking at some of these best practices and lessons learned. We're going to start with Paul Twene, and of course we'll be checking, let's see if Paul, yes indeed, is in the room, works at the regional level in Ghana. And let me see, Charlotte, can I ask you to summarize in 1 or 2 sentences this very dense slide? What is the best practice or lesson learned that Paul is sharing here?
So Paul is actually just sharing how they are using that integration of VPD investigation with other programs, that in a way that it helps in a limited resource context to do 2 things. That is, they kind of like integrated tuberculosis surveillance with COVID-19 contact tracing and other VPD surveillance activities.
All right, now let's go to Paul. We're going to ask him to introduce himself and to share firsthand anything else in order to fill in some of the blanks, and then we'll be going to the WHO subject matter experts for their comments, perhaps follow-up questions, and just to help better understand how an example like this fits with the new global strategy. So first of all, Paul Twene, a warm welcome to you. Please do introduce yourself and tell us what else would you like to add to this story that you shared in your application for the course.
Okay. Thank you very much for the opportunity. So my name is Paul Twene. I work in Ghana as the disease surveillance officer for the region, that is Eastern region to be specific. I coordinate surveillance activities, and as part of it, vaccine preventable diseases are not exempted. So I'm keenly involved in the vaccine preventable disease surveillance by supporting districts that record vaccine preventable disease in the investigation process. So per the system of operation, we have the district level, the sub-district level, and we have health workers who have been trained in the uptake of vaccine preventable disease investigation. So when there is any vaccine preventable disease recorded, right from the region, we support the district through to the sub-district level to the facility so that we are able to collectively address and then investigate the vaccine preventable disease. And for the officers, since they have been trained in the various angles, that is with regards to the investigation process, they don't do it in isolation. So like example, when a measles case is confirmed, the approach that is used in the investigation process for measles is applied at other diseases. So I cited an example that in the TB, when there is any case of confirmed tuberculosis, the approach is used, contact tracings are done, and then we are able to holistically use the same process to achieve our objective. So that is how, in brief, how the system operates in Ghana, where I operate as a surveillance officer for the region, and then support the district to ensure that we achieve our objectives in trying to meet the standards as Ghana Health Service recommends. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Now let's turn to the WHO team, and then we'll also turn to participants. If you'd like to comment, share your reflections, share your own practice. What does this look like where you work? So first, Dr. Anindya Sekar-Bose and Anna Minta from WHO. We'd love to hear, where does this fit into the new global strategy? What are your comments, reflections, follow-up questions for Paul Twene from Ghana?
Okay. Anna, shall I jump in?
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. So Paul, I congratulate you on these insights. This is actually, I mean, when we talk of comprehensive, we do use the term comprehensive VPD surveillance, but this is not used in a restrictive way on the VPD. I mean, if the country or the teams therein, they decide that they would expand the comprehensiveness beyond VPDs and leverage existing systems or funding, I mean, there is nothing like it. Frankly speaking, this is a very, very welcome, and thank you for highlighting this. This is exactly the kind of leveraging, because there are commonalities between systems of surveillance, data systems, etc., and which in the local context, and each country has its unique context, can be leveraged and can be utilized, can be used. Staff time can be apportioned to different types of surveillance, and say the same staff is going to health facility, can look for AFP if well trained, can look for polio AFP, can look for measles, can also look for suspected tuberculosis cases, depending on the context on the facility that he is visiting. So I think this is a very, very good example. Over from me.
Thank you, Anna Minta. Would you like to add to that? Do you have any follow-up questions or further reflections for Paul Twene?
Yes, I just wanted to echo Dr. Bose that this is really a very good example of what we're talking about with different systems using the same support functions. So as I was saying, you don't necessarily use the same type of surveillance for tuberculosis and COVID-19 as other diseases, and that's the way it should be. But the support functions, as Paul outlined, were integrated. So one follow-up question I have for Paul that we wonder about for all of the countries all around the world is that for the support functions and the funding that are available for COVID-19, as it sort of waxes and wanes, we've all seen, but is it predicted that those sources of funding will continue and can still be used for VPDs, or as COVID-19 becomes more endemic, will then there be a pivot to maybe another way of supporting the VPD surveillance?
So is that a question for Paul specifically?
Yes.
Okay. Paul, would you like to respond to that? Oh, all right. And Paul seems to have unfortunately lost the connection. That will happen to many of you. It's normal and healthy. It's already amazing that we're able to connect in this way. It's unfortunate we won't hear Paul's answer, but I suggest we go to the next best practice and lesson learned that we'll share.
Reda,
Yes.
we have Roberta Longwa, whose hand is raised, maybe he could have an experience that is linked to what Paul just shared.
Okay, that would be wonderful to hear.
Roberto,
I'm asking you to unmute.
Hi, everyone, and good morning once again from Cameroon. I just want to emphasize on the fact that maybe in the context of Ghana, this integration is already formally written in official documents. Here in Cameroon, we don't yet have it. Most programs are still vertical, fragmented, but owing to discussion at the subnational level, regional program leaders have been able to integrate some of their activities. For instance, we took advantage of regional malaria data review to train GMOs on disease surveillance, because the actors, those who were coming in, were the same. We also took advantage of the COVID-19 funds when we were conducting the regional workshop to assess cholera workshop. But there was no more funding to assess the cholera campaign we carried out earlier. So we used this COVID-19 workshop to do both. But still, again, this depends on strong collaboration between the various managers at the subnational level. They need to talk to each other. They must not wait for a formal document saying that they should integrate it. They can talk together and talk each other and do something and integrate it while waiting for things to be formalized. Down.
Thank you, Roberto. I see Dauda Samuel and Hanania has their hand up. Let's hear from one other best practice or lesson learned. Let me see. Let's see. Let's go to Caroline Wanjiku Maina. Yes, and she is in the room. So Caroline, you work at the central level in Kenya, and you said in the course of establishing case-based surveillance for meningitis in Kenya, we tried as much as possible to use existing structures, including writing on the existing sample referral systems in place. This enabled the referral of samples from sites that have no lab capacity to confirm meningitis. It also enabled the proper use of limited resources. Caroline, would love to hear from you. I'm asking you to unmute. Again, everything in the course requires your active participation, so do not be surprised if you are asked to speak. Caroline, welcome. Please do introduce yourself. What do you do exactly in the national team in Kenya? And is there anything else you'd like to add to the story that you shared in your application for this course?
So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. As you've heard, my name is Caroline Maina. I work at the national level disease surveillance and response unit, where I have worked in various capacities in VPD surveillance, including establishing environmental surveillance for polioviruses. I'm currently pursuing my MSc in epidemiology, but side by side, I'm also helping in establish or rather strengthen meningitis surveillance in the country. One of the or two of the challenges that have been presented by Dr. Anna actually are troubling us in the country as far as meningitis is concerned. We have data that we cannot use to make decisions. So as part of strengthening surveillance, we also would like to remedy what is happening. People seem to be reporting a lot of meningococcal meningitis, which is not confirmed. And actually, when we called back to those sites, they do not even have lab capacity. They're not collecting CSF samples. So again, it points to data quality issues in the country. So as we strengthen meningitis surveillance, or we as much as possible try to use existing structures, use the existing sites that we've been using for PBM surveillance, use the same human resource capacity. The National Public Health Laboratory Services at national level also managed to secure some funding for sample referral. This has also been a headache for our country, not measles surveillance, not AFP surveillance. Sample referral has been an issue, mainly also because we devolved our health systems from 2013. And we've seen a lot of teething problems. So with the 47 counties, some counties have prioritized surveillance, and in other counties we see minimal support to the surveillance teams. Yes, so that would be all from me for now.
Thank you, Caroline. So now over to Anindya Sekarbose and then Anna Minta for feedback. Can you help us connect the dots between Caroline's practice and the new global strategy from WHO?
No, yeah, thanks, Caroline. I mean, this is another excellent example of sort of what the principle of efficiency in using resources. I mean, the way she is describing it, that's an excellent example. I would just like to bring up one point for everyone's attention, and this is important to understand. This is an excellent example of efficiency, but sometimes we also need to be aware of the technical issues here, particularly in this example, when you're trying to isolate a bacteriological etiology, a bacteriological agent. Sometimes transporting samples, if it takes too long, may be counterproductive unless you use some other special transport materials. I don't want to go into details here. Special transport materials for transport during the time, because that may entail a delay. So I'm sure the team has looked into that. So as a principle, this is great, but when we implement these principles, we need to be cognizant of the technical issues that are involved there. I will just highlight, I'm looking at if you allow me, I'll just highlight one point here, because I look at the questions in the chat box, and there's a lot of questions of what kind of, whether it's Sentinel or whether it would be population-based, what kind of surveillance system is best for the country or the context. I'll just add one sentence here, that when we design a surveillance system, at least the way one should think about is to think backwards. Think what is your end objective. If it is eradication, say polio, or elimination like measles, you need to have a system where you have to get each and every case and some or other lab confirm it or epi-link those cases. That needs one type of design of surveillance. So Sentinel site, of course, will not work for polio or for measles. But if your objective is to get some sense of the burden, and you have a vaccine or some other interventions which will control it, and you can monitor, even if you're not getting all the cases that the burden is going up, down, or remaining the same, then maybe Sentinel site is the answer. And between these, there can be a whole spectrum of different models. So try to think backwards from your objective and then fit it according to the country context and the resources available. Over from myself.
Thank you very much indeed. Anna, comments on specifically Caroline, and then indeed referring to some of the very interesting questions and comments in the chat and where the discussion is going.
Yeah, so I also thank Caroline for the example that you gave. And as you mentioned, there are some strengths to the system that you've mentioned, trying to integrate different surveillance together. But that's also raised challenges that your team, as you said, is also trying to address. And that's exactly what the process is. This is not something simple. It's not one size fits all. It varies. Like you said, some districts have support and interest in surveillance, some don't. So even within the country, there are differences that you see within different districts. So I thank you for your example. And I do think it highlights that this is not an easy thing that we're talking about. And there are lots of nuances that we all need to think about together and focus really for each of us on our specific context. What can we do to improve the surveillance? So thank you for your example.
Thank you, Anna. Now, if you'd like to share your own experience in response to either of these two examples, please raise your hand. If you have a comment, a follow-up question, an insight you would like to share, just go to the raise hand button. And yes, Dauda, Samuel, Hanania, I know you had your hand raised before, so let's go to you now.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning,
please do introduce
everyone.
Yourself.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. I'm Hanania Dauda, WHO surveillance officer working at the subnational level in Kaduna State, Nigeria. I was initially want to share the experience at the subnational level here regarding utilizing the resources and seeing how you improve integration regarding both TB and COVID. We were initially supporting the TB in terms of sustainability of funding, like Anna had earlier asked. In Nigeria, I think there is a very, very good system of funding that comes from global funds supporting TB response in Nigeria. And some of their key interventions for improving case detection include the contact tracing, like the colleague from Ghana had earlier shared, and then also community interventions like going from house to house or conducting outreaches. All these are some of the interventions in addition to screening everybody that enters all the hospitals for TB. All these were interventions that had improved TB case detection in Nigeria over the years. Now with the coming in of COVID, most of the similarities you see between TB and COVID at the subnational level, though at the national level, these are also policies that are trying to be adapted at the subnational level, especially in Kaduna State. We had to look at the similarities, and in terms of the contact tracing, we made sure that we also do that together, and that yielded a lot of results. In terms of specimen referral, there is an integrated national specimen referral network that was also used to transport TB, HIV, and other samples from the community to the testing sites. That channel was also used to transport COVID sample at the peak of the response. Also, at the community level, when they are doing the house-to-house as well as the community outreaches, that same funding was also used to make sure that persons with COVID were also tested. So that also demonstrates at the subnational level that we can integrate, especially when you have those samples and similarities. Of course, the gene expert that is used in testing for TB were also utilized to also test for COVID. The capacity was built, the resources were gotten, the government gave some little resources, and also the NCDC provided some. So that helped to make sure that at least wherever we are looking for TB, we are looking for COVID. Wherever we are looking for COVID, we are also looking for TB. That helps to also make sure that we use whichever funding that is available. If it is coming from the COVID, we use the COVID. If it is coming from the TB, we use the TB. At least we know that the TB is sustainable because Global Fund is always there to provide that funding. The issue is the government contribution that is the issue. Thank you, and over.
Thank you very much indeed. Let's start this time with Anna's response, comments, feedback, connecting the dots back to the global strategy, and then in India.
Thank you very much, Dauda, for your comments. This is another very good example of what we're talking about with comprehensive surveillance that's also integrated. So it's a good example with tuberculosis and COVID-19, using resources from one to help with the other because the basic support functions are the same. One question I have for you is, do you see a way that other diseases can be incorporated? And I'm specifically thinking of the challenge a lot of countries have with confirmation of bacterial VPD, vaccine preventable diseases. And if there's a specimen transport in place already for tuberculosis, I'm wondering if you see a way to incorporate other bacterial VPDs in there, or if you think that would best be done in another way. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Anna, for that question. Yeah, if you look at the community-based intervention, of course, at the subnational level, we are working on doing a more integrated in terms of community intervention, where you look at other diseases that within the community where the outreaches will be taking place. the Kaduna State government were able to procure some mobile diagnostic trucks, and that the response that we intend to use with that truck is an all integrated part. So when you go to the community, you look for all diseases. It will not be restricted to just TB and COVID. Now, going to the second question in terms of the referral, I know that referral system is supported by USAID. And of course, even before we were able to bring in COVID into the referral system, we had to discuss the government. Through the government, they had to have some little discussion with the USAID coordinators to make sure that that was adopted. Of course, I'm sure if we are able to look at that, that would also be available. Of course, for the other VPDs, because of the availability, that's the Nigerian Center for Disease Control, have also a referral system wherein if you don't have a diagnostic mechanism in the state where you are to diagnose those VPDs, they have also identified a courier system that can help to transport that sample from the central collection point at the state level to the National Reference Laboratory. So the challenge here is the transport system from where the sample is collected, that is the district or the LGA level, to the center, because the courier is only engaged to transport the samples from the center to the reference lab. Now, the challenge we are having is getting the funding for transporting these samples from the district level or from where it is collected at the LGA or district level to the center. That is where the gaps is. And WHO in Kaduna State is trying its best to provide some of this funding in terms of transportation for measles. And sometimes we even use that same funding to transport other samples from where they are collected, in addition to the measles, like the yellow fever and the others. We support the transportation from where they are collected to the center. Then the NCDC takes over the transportation using the courier system that is available here in Nigeria. Thank you, and over.
All right, thank you very much indeed. And that is right on time to move into the next segment for this for today's session. So I was showing and we'll show again the course program. You can see that we're now at the 10 past 10 in Geneva, Switzerland. Of course, the time is likely to be different depending on where you are. We are going to go into a new remote coffee. So you will be going into your breakout group. In principle, you should find the same people that you met in the first remote coffee during the opening ceremony. If not, no big deal. This is the group now that you will be working with throughout the rest of the day. We've just shared a lot very quickly on best practices and lessons learned on VPD surveillance. So your goal, you have in principle already introduced yourselves to each other. Your goal in the next 10 minutes of the remote coffee is to actually share your thoughts. What you listened, a few of you got to speak. Now share your thoughts, your insights. What did you make of this discussion? What did you take away from this discussion? So you should be moved automatically into the breakout rooms. This time we're going for 10 minutes. And let me see. Yeah, we should be able to. There. Open all the rooms, and you should find yourselves in a group with 5 or 6 participants. Starting now. So again, you should share your reflections, your thoughts. You just listen to a discussion, hopefully with a lot of attention. What did you make of what you heard of Paul Twain's and Caroline's situations, best practices, and lessons learned that they shared? Should now be moved automatically into the... All right, then I see. For those of you who joined after the opening ceremony, we're now assigning you, it will take a little bit longer, but we're now assigning you to individual breakout rooms. If you were late or if you were disconnected, you almost certainly will find yourself in a breakout group, sorry, that is different from the one you were originally in. Now groups now have 7 or 8 people, as many of you have joined since. You should find yourself moving. If you're not, we've almost done assigning everyone to their breakout room. Should be a couple more minutes, a couple more seconds, I should say. We're now at 8 members per breakout group. Okay, everyone should be in the breakout room right now. Let me see who is not and why. All right, so for Melissa Teferi, Paul Okot, Roberto Talongwa, Wika Wanbol, Melissa Teferi. Okay, obviously having connectivity issues, most of you. Right, welcome back. Everyone now has 60 seconds to make their way, find their way back to the main plenary room. So this was 10 minutes in which you got to freely discuss the topic of the discussion in plenary. The big difference, I'll say this again once everyone is back in the room, because there is a sort of time, 60 seconds for everyone to rejoin, is that in the next session, you will have a specific purpose. You will have to designate a rapporteur, a note taker, and then you will have to take that note taker will be listening to the discussion, taking notes, and you'll have to work your way through a set of questions. So we'll speak more about that after we finish the next session, which is the first group problem solving session. So I think everyone is now back. Welcome back. What you did there for 10 minutes is a warm-up for what you will be doing the next time we go into the itch session of breakout groups. Next time, you will have to designate a rapporteur, a note taker, someone from your group, from your breakout group. It should be the same group, unless you get disconnected. Will have to take it upon themselves to take notes and then submit those notes on behalf of the group. That is how your attendance will be recorded, your attendance as well as your participation. So now we are going to work through together in plenary from challenge identification to action planning to improve VPD surveillance systems. The first concrete case we'll be working on is the one from Safa. So it looks like, unfortunately, Safa is not in the room with us. Charlotte, can you confirm?
Yeah, Safa is not in the room, Reda.
All right. So let's see. We obviously won't be able to get answers, but let us start with Safa and this example from Sierra Leone. So Safa Kamara works at the national central level and says there are various vertical programs in the Ministry of Health, each with specific mandates, intervention areas. Most of the programs have disease surveillance components that are implemented in silos. Efforts should be coordinated to maximize available resources for cost effectiveness. All programs and partners should work together and ensure resources are mapped and activities implemented inclusively. The challenge is that partners and government agencies are not coordinating, hence duplication of efforts and resources. So the point about this case is to ask everyone in the room now to consider Safa Kamara's challenge and to think about your own experience. Is this challenge a challenge that you face? Is this a challenge where you have been able to make progress? If so, we'd like to know how. If so, we'd like to invite you to share your experience. And then, of course, we'll be turning to Anna Minta and Anindya Sikarbose from WHO for their insights and experience. So let's see, we have Herbert, who's the first to raise their hands. Herbert, over to you. And then we have Alain Blaise Tatsinku, so let's hear, and then Pamela Oben. So, great. So we'll listen to Herbert, then Alain Blaise, then Pamela, and then we'll turn to Anna and India. Herbert, when you read Safa Kamara's challenge, is this something that you are familiar with? Is this something that you are facing too? Please do introduce yourself first, though. Yes.
My name is Surveillance Officer, one of the regions in Uganda. Yeah, according to this challenge, in most countries, I worked in most countries, I've worked in Asia, in Africa, but the main challenge is countries don't own surveillance. Most of the surveillance is done by partners, and these partners are independent, and it's very hard to coordinate them. And mainly, like in most countries, it is WHO and the UNICEF, but other partners come in and they don't even show up. So it's a very great challenge to countries, even in Africa, even in Uganda where I work. You cannot ask who is in charge of surveillance at the Ministry of Health. You can't. It is only WHO and UNICEF.
Yes, so it sounds like
it's a very great challenge in almost many countries where surveillance is being done of VPD. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Herbert. So can you tell us something you did in the past, something in your experience that helped to overcome this challenge, where you were able to get partners and government agencies to coordinate better, to avoid duplication of effort and resources? Have you been able to make any progress that you'd like to share from your experience?
Yes, I have been able to solve this challenge in my region. I have called on partners, mainly USAID funded projects. They have been supporting surveillance, and UNICEF partners. We sit down and plan in terms of surveillance and how to support VPD surveillance. So far, we coordinate to each other and we make one report, which is submitted to the Ministry of Health. So at least we are moving on well. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now, the next person was Pamela Oben. Pamela, you were the second person to raise your hand. Sometimes we can't keep track and we don't necessarily follow the order, but Pamela, I would love to hear from you. This Safa Kamara's challenge from Sierra Leone, is this a challenge you face? Do introduce yourself, tell us who you are, where you work, and then what are your thoughts on this and your experience?
Hi, everyone. Hi, Reda. I'm Oben Pamela, and I am the EPI coordinator for the Southwest region in my country, Cameroon. I want to join my voice to Safa and the others just to say, yes, it is a challenge that is very true to us in the fact that not being able to coordinate surveillance activities has been a major challenge. We have the integrated disease surveillance response, and we have VPDs in my region. And there are times when samples collected maybe for monkeypox, they don't have forms. They don't have particular forms for notification of monkeypox. And we had this particular situation in which a measles form was used to notify monkeypox, and it ended up coming to our specimen collection center. And in some ways, it was forwarded together with our samples, and we see how this is already a challenge as it was being tested. It was tested then for measles and not for monkeypox, just because they didn't have the particular tool. So being able to work together, coordinate activities together is very important. We use this as a stepping stone to work with those in charge of the integrated disease surveillance response, and just to let them to be clear on the channeling, the courier channeling system for specimens. And also it's an opportunity, it was used as an opportunity to work in collaboration with them to know which cases are being notified at the level of the health district and to ensure that the channels followed are appropriate. And we don't get to have such a situation anymore. So yes, coordination is very important. And we can only work well when we work in collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Pamela Oben from Cameroon. Let's go to Alain Blaise Tatsinkou. Alain Blaise, okay, his hand is now down, but let's, Alain Blaise, please, what is the experience you'd like to share in response to Safa Camara's situation case?
Yes, Reda, thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. Thank you, Kamara, for sharing this. And I would like to especially thank Minta for her introduction and Godwin and all that. This is really a critical point. What I want to share here is really an experience coming from the challenges that we face in Haiti a couple of years ago. The country being after the earthquake, to be able to demonstrate that we still have the elimination of measles. So we budgeted and put in place a team of surveillance officers. Well, back then I was a STOP team member, and we developed the national network of surveillance officers within the country. And as you all know, the country was also facing the cholera outbreak, a major challenge. And we were able to really use the resources that we as VPD surveillance officer put in place to also support the cholera outbreak, from the surveillance, the active surveillance, to the response when the vaccines were available at the country level. And that was really a critical point to help the country achieve not only the certification of being measles-free, but also that was a major turning point to tackle back the cholera in the country. And the VPD surveillance was the entry point where we were able to leverage resources in place to help the country tackle the challenges as a whole in an integrated manner. So I would like to seize the opportunity to really thank those VPD surveillance officers who were able to also help the country to be cholera free. That is what I wanted to share here. So Kamara's point is really critical, and we really want to, all of us here, to reflect back on how we can leverage existing resources, local resources, to achieve what we are doing, because resources is key, but where are they coming from? And that is where I would like the discussion to go back to how to leverage, mobilize local resources for VPD surveillance and not waiting only external partners. Thank you, Reda and team.
Thank you, Alain Blaise Tatsinkou. Let's go to Anna Minta now for feedback on this case and what we've heard from course participants so far. One point of note is, now Safa is not in the room. We still selected this case for discussion. Safa will discover what we said afterwards, but the point is to help Safa Camara facing this issue. What, in your experience, has actually been effective in overcoming such a challenge? And for Anna Minta, the corollary question is, how can the new global strategy help someone like Safa Camara or others facing this quite common issue to think through what specific steps to take to tackle this challenge?
Thank you, Safa, for the question, and thank you to those who have answered so far. This has been a very great discussion. I'm glad to hear about some of the success stories that you mentioned about how you were able to integrate the different funding streams, resources that were available. I think this is a huge challenge. I've seen some comments in the chat as well about why it's a challenge. It can start from who is funding which disease. I understand that. I've worked in malaria, HIV, TB, and vaccine preventable diseases, and it's usually completely different funders. So when you're starting from there, it can be in silos and very difficult to work across. But I did see one common thread among the comments that have been mentioned so far, is that someone took the initiative to reach out to someone in another program and convince them maybe of how it would be helpful for everyone if the resources were used for more than just their disease of interest. So I think that's very important. And then Alain also mentioned that it can be difficult if the country waits for external partners to initiate this conversation. And that's one of the very important points from the global strategy, is that we want surveillance to be country owned. So if the country is finding that the external partners giving their funding in silos is leading to duplication, and then some things are also falling through the cracks, it can be some people from the country who can talk to them. And I'm not saying it will be an easy conversation or that it will always work, but to initiate the conversation that in our country context, we think that it would be helpful if we could use the resources from COVID for measles or, you know, whatever the case may be in your country setting. So these are very good points, and there should be definitely more conversation about how to address this.
Great, thank you, Anna. Let's now look at the second case. And for participants, you all have the slide deck. You know that there are many more such cases. And the point of sharing them with you is for you to think about, you know, for Samuel Luca Abbott, what would be your advice? And let's see if, Charlotte, are you able to tell me if he is? Yes, Samuel is here. I know he had, I believe he was one of the folks who had connectivity issues. We'll see if we can hear from him first. So he works at the national level in Nigeria and says basically surveillance is funded by government partners with little or no funding from the government. Efforts at getting government ownership of surveillance activities, especially at the subnational level, remain a big challenge. There have been engagements in terms of advocacy and sensitization for the need for government at the subnational level to provide leadership and funding to improve surveillance for VPDs, but it seems a huge task. I will be glad to get suggestions on how to deal with this issue. Of course, the Nigerian context is quite specific, but let's hear now if we can. So if you only keep your hand raised, or raise your hand if you'd like to share your specific experience with how something that you did in your experience that helped you, in your country to have government ownership of surveillance activities at the subnational levels. So I believe Mohammed Imran Qureshi is the first one up. Imran, you're calling in, of course, from Pakistan. Do remind us who you are and where you work. I know also you are not in a location with good connectivity. So, and again, on this issue of government ownership of surveillance activities at the subnational level, if you'd like to raise your hand, and I see contributions in the chat. So, but I'm not sure, Mersha Gorfu, which challenge you're referring to. They are similar. There's definitely some overlap in terms of the role of partners versus the role of government. Let's go then to Anna Minta. I don't see any hands up right now, so please do raise your hand if you'd like to contribute your specific experience, something, and then we'll hear from Samuel on this issue. Eric? Maita, you have your hand raised. How have you, in your context, been able to get subnational buy-in or ownership? And I'm also asking Samuel Abbott to unmute. All right, Eric?
Okay.
Please
yeah,
do
thank yourself. You very much. Yeah, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, loud and clear.
Thank you very much. So I just want to share my experience having worked at the sub-regional level. The issue of underfunding is across board, that some national government, sub-national government do not attach much importance to surveillance. But what we have done at the regional level is that during the budgeting process, where we budget all health activities, and then they are subjected to the counter assembly for approval, we do what is called program-based budgeting. So in the program-based budgeting, we have about 4 programs: preventive promotive program. Then under preventive promotive program, we have sub-programs. So disease surveillance is one of the sub-programs where we are supposed to come up with activities and budgeting. So in that sub-program, we budget issues of advocacy, issues of sample collection and transportation, and issues of quarterly review, quarterly surveillance review. so that those are funded. So when the budget has been approved, then those funds are available for us to use at the sub-national level. So though the funds are not adequate, but at least it is substantial to ensure that those activities that are budgeted for are implemented. Otherwise, we normally get much support from partners, from WHO and other partners. But at the regional level, that is the much that we can get. For example, in the last financial year, we were able to be allocated around Kenya shillings 500,000. So Kenya shillings 500,000, I think it's just like, I think 50 US dollars. So thank you very much, and over and out.
Thank you, Eric. Maita, let's hear one more. Let's go to Dr. Martin Mayen. Martin, would love to hear from you. What is your specific experience? Do introduce yourself, of course, but what's the specific experience that you'd like to share that could be helpful to Samuel, whose challenge is how to get government ownership at the subnational level for surveillance activities? Martin, your microphone is unmuted, but I at least am not hearing you. Charlotte, can you confirm?
I'm not hearing him either, Brenda.
Let's go to Samuel Gia while Martin sorts out his connectivity issues. Samuel, please do introduce yourself and tell us what is your specific experience you'd like to share that could help Samuel think through the actions, the corrective actions to take to strengthen government ownership at the subnational level for surveillance activities.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Samuel Gia. I work as Director of Disease Control at the subnational level in Nigeria. I think Samuel has a very critical point, and I like what Eric said. I think we need to, he has already started some of the solutions, which is advocacy and also sensitization. Because if that must be continuous until you achieve a reasonable ownership. And what do I mean by that? Budgets are made by governments and especially at subnational level, but they never get released, fund backings. Program officers make budgets, submit them, but at the end of the year, they just get maybe a percentage of what has been made. So, but for us in Nigeria, we are beginning to explore the option of bringing all the sub-national leadership, that is the governors, together in the Nigerian Governors Forum. And there we discuss issues that are critical to health. We talk about service delivery, we talk about funding for health, we talk about, now we're beginning to talk about even the surveillance that, look, in the government, you need to take responsibility, because it's seen basically, just like somebody said, oh, it's WHO's program, it's WHO's work, it's WHO's role. If you have any issue, why don't you go meet WHO? So we need to begin to integrate them into that. Look, with WHO, yes, they work there, but they are partners to help us achieve our goal. It is our country, it is our state, it's our district. We need to do this. So advocacy and sensitization is a key role he needs to continue to do. Though it may be difficult, yeah, it took us time. It took us almost 3 years to almost get to the round table with them, but it just keep trying, So thank you. I just want others to come in as well. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Brenda, Harriet Ninsima, I've asked Brenda to unmute, but she is not responding. So
no, I have unmuted.
Okay, wonderful. Do introduce yourself, remind us who you are, where you're connecting from, and then what's the specific experience you'd like to share with Samuel Luka Abbott?
My name is Brenda Harriet Ninsima. I'm connecting from Uganda, and I'm serving at subnational level, supporting polio surge activities, majorly surveillance and other associated activities. My experience is not indifferent from colleagues, more so about the different partners involved in surveillance. And this was recognized at regional level, because this is where I serve. And I am attached to a regional referral hospital. So regional referral hospitals have got a community health department, and the main mandate of this department is to coordinate community health activities where surveillance lies. So I proposed to the head of department, community health, to call on a meeting for the known partners, which were in the district, and majorly this was myself working for WALIM with support from World Health Organization, and then the World Health Organization consultant, whose terms of reference were majorly into response to COVID. So my terms of reference were more directed to polio surge, and his terms of reference were to COVID response. So with those meetings, we were able to share our terms of reference and our district base, because we're in different district bases. We did zoning, and we were able to cover ourselves. So I covered polio, COVID activities in my district where I was supporting. He also covered polio surge in the district where he was. However, the challenge remains with the other consultants that would come in, like the end-stop consultants would come in for a short time. We could find ourselves in the same district offering the same services, which I would say would bring in duplication, bring in maybe even confusion to the district. So my recommendation would be that if all this is coordinated at Ministry of Health, and then Ministry of Health passes communication to the regional referral, which after goes to the community health department of the region, and the community health department at regional level takes up the mantle to coordinate this. However, this department is also affected by shortage of funds. And what we've been working on is integrating surveillance activities into planning for the regional referral. And for this financial year, successfully submitted a work plan to the budget of the regional referral. Over to you, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Let's go now to Anna Minta. You've heard several contributions in response to Samuel Luca Abbott's challenge. Can you help us connect the dots back to the global strategy and also share your insights, comments, follow-up questions on this particular case?
Yes, thank you all for your feedback. I think you all have given wonderful examples that basically are in line with the comprehensive EPD surveillance strategy. I mentioned a little bit before, part of the strategy is for surveillance to be country owned. And what I'm hearing from you all is that it is really at the sometimes subnational or national level where you all are putting forth conversations. And I really like what Samuel said. It took 3 years. So like I said, this is not like we have a conversation one time and everything is solved. This may take some persistence. Finding the right people to talk to. I've seen comments about turnover in staff, so it may be an ongoing conversation with every new staff that comes in. But the examples that you've given address that question and are definitely in line with the strategy. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Anna. We actually have 3 minutes left in this segment. There's some wonderful messages in the chat. Anna, is there anything that you've spotted that you'd like to bring to the attention of the group?
I did see a comment about performance-based financing. I don't necessarily am supportive of one particular type of financing. That's really at the country level and subnational level to decide how to do that. But I just wanted to say I like the idea, and I think it's helpful to think about supporting the staff who do surveillance, because it's a lot of work. They're asked to do so many activities. A lot of staff in many countries are stretched thin. And it can sound like when we start talking about comprehensive EPD surveillance that we're asking the same staff to do more work without necessarily more support. And so I just appreciate that comment about ways to support staff and provide some extra support for them as they do their job.
Thanks, Anna. Okay, so this up until 10:48 a.m. In the morning in Geneva has been the warm-up. We're now going to go into the first itch session. So you have experienced breakout groups and you introduced yourselves and sort of chatted about some of the early discussion. This time is going to be different. You are again going to, in principle, find the same people you were with in the earlier breakout groups. If you find yourself in a group with other people because you're disconnected or because there's a glitch of some kind, go with it, meet the new participants, but please do not delay the group. The first task, as soon as you are in your breakout group, do not sit there waiting for something to happen. What is going to happen is in the hands of each and every one of you. You are going to have to designate one person who is going to be the note taker or rapporteur. Second, you're going to have to designate a facilitator. So somebody can unmute and say, I'll be the note taker or I'll be the facilitator. If no one does, someone is going to have to speak up if you want your participation in the group, in today's session to be counted. I'll explain that in a little bit. Now, second task is once you have a facilitator, now it can be the same person as the note taker, you'll need to ask the group to propose one VPD surveillance challenge that the group is going to work on. So we want this to be specific, someone's actual challenge. And then you write down the title of the challenge and the full name of the challenge owner. Now, where do you write this down? Well, you should have, we sent you last Monday, we sent then by Telegram, we sent in the reminders, and I've posted it several times in the Zoom room today, the template for the rapporteur notes. I'm going to paste it again for anybody who missed it. But now the important thing is only one person needs to have this template, the note taker, the rapporteur. Now, once you have a challenge, the rest of the session, and this is going to be lightning fast. You have 30 minutes to do all of this. Okay, so select the note taker, the facilitator, pull up the rapporteur notes, and start the discussion. And the facilitator then invites participants in the room in your breakout group to share experiences relevant to the challenge. So you need to have, of course, the challenge identified. And then the rapporteur's job is to write down the main points of the experiences shared. Finally, the rapporteur will ask the group to summarize the key points of the discussion. So what does that look like in practice? You practiced, some of you at least practiced sharing your screens. So the note taker, only the note taker will be sharing their screens, but what does that look like? So you can see here the template simply needs to be filled out. Fill out your breakout room number, the date, the number of participants in the room, the rapporteur's name, the email, and the WhatsApp. So if you're the note taker, you should know your name, email, and WhatsApp numbers. Now, first task is to then write the names of the participants who are actively participating. If there's someone who's silent and who's not even writing in the chat because they have connectivity issues or whatever, you do not write down their name, or you can write down their name but note that they are not active. Okay, this is very important. And then you work your way through the questions. So first of all, what is the one VPD surveillance challenge that the group decides on? Summarize what the challenge owner explains about their VPD surveillance context, and then you work through the specific goal and the experiences and the concrete actions. Now, I'm going to ask you to go as far as you're able to in a 30-minute session. We'll see how far you get within 30 minutes. So we're going to go now into the breakout groups. One of you, if you feel like a note taker, if you enjoy doing those kinds of tasks, duties, do offer as soon as you go in the room. You need to get organized, get down to business in order to be successful, to finish answering all 6 questions within the time allotted. So I'm setting up the room now, so we will have 30 minutes, and off we go. You should now be sent to your breakout group. Hopefully you'll find the same people you were with before. If not, don't panic. If you join very late, we'll assign you to a breakout group. All right, welcome back. Now I have 60 seconds for everyone to come back into the main room. Welcome back. Okay, should be a few more seconds before everyone rejoins. Obviously, many groups we're in the middle of the work. Now everyone is coming back. Welcome back to all of you.
Yes, sir. Rather, you're right. The time was too short. We hardly managed to cover the first 3 points, and we
That's already quite commendable. The time pressure is real, but it models the real world of work where we rarely have all the time we would like to have in order to solve a problem, develop a response to a challenge. So we are now, so let me just show you where we are in the schedule. So you've just had your first experience of the itch session. And now we are going to ask probably rapporteurs, but rapporteurs, note takers may wish to call on other members of their groups to present what you were able to do in this first 30-minute session. And we know that organizing as a group can take a significant amount of time. So if you were a rapporteur and are ready to present however much work you were able to do, please write your group number. So for example, if I'm group X, and I am ready to present, put group with, of course, the number of your group. Okay, group 5. All right. So we have our first presenter. So, and then group 9. So yeah, we'll try to go in. So we have already 2 groups. Ande Butap Elisha, the floor is yours, and then.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So this is group 5. The participants' names are there for our reference, and our challenge was a challenge from Iraq, where there is delay in sample transportation, especially for diseases that are not supported by vertical programs such as measles and rubella. And this causes delays in the overall VPD surveillance with delays in sample transportation to the Central Public Health Lab. Key components of these challenges include inadequately trained workforce for these programs that are not supported. So they do not collect or store samples correctly. Also, they delay in getting the samples to the lab. Sometimes there are inadequate sample collection kits. And the issue of financing, there's very limited resources to transport samples, lack of incentives for staff. And sometimes the sample collectors do not have funds to transport multiple samples. Once they've taken the primary sample they've come for, even if they are called to return and take other samples, that is not funded. So the goal of the challenge owner was to see how we can improve, ensure timely transportation of samples for improved surveillance, and then to enhance the surveillance activities through improved coordination using mechanisms or systems such as task forces, technical working groups, partner and government coordination, harmonized work planning to strengthen overall surveillance system. What experiences were shared by others include the use of network of transporters in Cameroon, for example, where sample transportation was contracted out to private transporters, and then for integrated transportation, whatever sample is available, they need to transport it irrespective of the program. Then also capacity building. In Nigeria, we built capacity of DSNOs to provide surveillance for all activities. The DSNOs function at the lowest level in the community. So irrespective of whether a program is funded or not, the DSNO is trained to support those activities, including sample transportation. Then Liberia used a similar thing with Cameroon, using the Riders for Help. And Kenya improved coordination through better coordination. They created a WhatsApp group, and when samples are collected, it is posted on that group. If the samples are picked up, it is also reflected. So there's tracing of the samples up until when it gets to the lab. So for the concrete actions we want to take, we said improve communication between programs on how to integrate and maximize resources, just like this Kenya experience, improve coordination between vertical programs, advocacy to government for financial support, consider batching of samples where possible so that they are taken to the lab, and then ensure regional labs to support the CPHL, because the distance to the CPHL might be very much. So if there are regional labs, they can support this. And then finally, to build capacity of healthcare workers on sample transportation and surveillance in general. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. So, of course, here you worked on one case. Remember that by the 14th of July, so that's less than 3 days from now, or 3 days from now, you'll have to submit your entire project on your situation, your challenge. So as you work, as you do this group work, think about your own challenge and what can you learn from the process and the discussion and the dialogue and the feedback you're getting from your colleagues that will help you with your own plan. Let's now go to Anna Minta. So first of all, so this was group 5. Thank you, Ndebutop Elisha and colleagues. Anna, would love to hear from you. What are you able to glean from this presentation? Can you help us connect the dots in 2 ways? One, back to the global strategy, and second, to the to the action plan that each participant in the course is going to be doing in the next 72 hours.
Thank you, Group 5, for your presentation. That was great to hear. This highlights several important issues, primarily integration of functions. So the challenge was identified. Some specimens are not making it to the lab, even though other specimens are. And the challenge was very clearly clarified, I would say, because the challenge was the people who were doing the sample collection didn't get funding to come back for additional samples. So then the solutions that were raised by other countries I thought were very interesting, and they highlighted integration. So it was really using other services or different mechanisms, creative ways to make sure that all of the samples are getting where they need to go. So this presentation highlighted some really key issues for the action plan. For the action plan, you want to make sure that what you're proposing is possible, and it's something that you could do at your level of surveillance. And so the other people who responded what their countries have done, these are specific actionable items that they could take back to their district or national EPI surveillance program and say, we could hire drivers to do this. We could integrate with the other programs. We could start a WhatsApp group. Tell them specific things that they can do, and that makes it more likely to be able to be implemented.
Thank you, Anna. Let's now go. So we have 2 presenters for Group 9. We have Fiti Melis Hagos and Deborah Akinola. So I don't know who wants, which of the 2 of you was going to share their screen. I will ask both of you to. Okay, yeah, done. And then, so is that? All right. Yes, that's Fitwi. The floor is yours. You will have to unmute though. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Reda. Can my screen be seen?
Yes, indeed.
Perfect. Yes. Okay. Okay. So yes, I'm from Group 9. The list of participants, as you can see from the screenshot. I mean, from the screen, 7 participants. So the challenge the group has decided to work on is on sustainable financing for vaccine preventable diseases. This was raised by our group member Abdurizak from Somalia. So the overall problem in Somalia he mentioned was really this is the financing of vaccine preventable diseases has really challenged the program to not really function very well. So the group has also agreed to that this is really a real challenge in most of the countries where we are working now. So this is what we have decided. Yes, we have tried to go as much as we can, but not really in every part of the section. So from the workforce side, like we have raised the strength is in terms of the sustainable financing of VPDPs and the workforces. Of course, we have well capacitated personnel in terms of this surveillance. And of course, being the challenge, staff attrition is highly challenging, where it's due to the lack of the finance the government is failing to, replace those trained personnel and who have been working on the program. In terms of the laboratory, yes, at national level, most of the countries have the capacity to test these vaccine preventable diseases, but this is not really the case in subnationals, especially in big countries, where really the laboratory result is needed very timely in order to respond timely. So this is just directly related to the financing, to the challenge of financing. And in terms of information system, yes, I mean, many of the countries have in place the reporting system, the flow of the information regarding this surveillance. Of course, somehow financing for the reporting system, but still we have a challenge in using a technology, a fast reporting system in all the countries. So, unless we invest on this in technology where we can get immediately within a very short period of time on reporting these vaccine preventable diseases, still we may not have enough time to respond timely for the outbreak. So we still have much to go regarding the information system. With regard to applied research, it is everywhere. It is in all the countries from where the groups have come. We are not really relating or integrating training institutions into this research or into vaccine preventable disease surveillance. So there is not research ongoing in countries specific to these diseases. So without a research that we cannot really we cannot really the gaps that we are having, and we cannot improve our surveillance system for vaccine preventable diseases. So yes, so the sustainable financing is a challenge in itself, of course. The strengths being we have a well-established specific disease surveillance as well as IDSR and the support from partners. And with regard to challenge, no government is currently funding sufficiently vaccine preventable disease surveillance. It's mainly partner supported. And each partner had their own goal or specific interest in this VPD surveillance, where it really cannot respond to the broad aspect of VPD surveillance. Of course, we have this opportunity and treat funders either for other specific diseases, like the way we were discussing earlier, like TB or meningitis. So these are also an opportunity for VPD surveillance. And the threat that our team member mentioned was like a lack of the government ownership on this vaccine preventable disease surveillance is really a threat to the program. So with specific goals that we agreed to work on is to have a sustainable vaccine preventable disease system, surveillance system in place, funded with sufficient financing for all the diseases that vaccine preventable diseases. So specific experiences, each partner have partners have sufficient funding within a given country, leveraging other programs like I was mentioning, TB, meningitis, integrating to the already existing IDSR program, integration of surveillance program personnel in other surveillance programs, especially the way we have seen in COVID-19, where AFP surveillance or other surveillance personnel, we leveraged that manpower to respond to a given outbreak, and so on. These are some of the experiences we discussed in our group. So the last point is on concrete actions we need to take in order to improve this challenge, this sustainable financing of the program, is like step by step transitioning the partner spending to the government is that one we thought should be the action.
having a regular meeting and experience sharing of the partners, so that we will not have a duplication of work. We will not have, at least one specific interest partners can cover the other diseases as well. So having this partner experience and regular meeting is very important. And the government to increase funding to the program and develop a tool that the government has sufficient financing for vaccine preventable disease surveillance as far as it is a concern of WHO and other partners. So we discussed, like, we need to have a kind of a tool that really tracks whether a government is really investing sufficiently to the program before we completely leave the surveillance funding to the government. We need to have a kind of tool that really shows how governments are committing themselves in order to fund the disease, and operationalize the existing EPI guidelines in the countries. I think it's exactly what we have discussed, like the IA 2030, we have the guidelines in place. So how do we really operationalize this into the countries so that they have a real meaning of the guidelines in a certain country? And the policy to ensure the availability of funding, of course, countries need to have in their policy that addressing all BPD surveillance need to be funded. And bringing training institutions, universities, research companies into inviting them to do the research in vaccine preventable diseases. So this is what we have discussed, and of course a lot of discussion that I may lack to track within this short period of time. I will incorporate and submit final report. Thank you so much. Over to you, Reda.
Thank you very much, Fitwi. Actually, over to Anna for her feedback. Just to the remainder of the groups, in principle, we only have 9 minutes left. We can take a 5 more minutes, so that means 15 minutes. You should really try to condense your presentation to 3 minutes, 4 minutes stop. Anna, over to you. What did you hear? What's your feedback, questions, comments, and how do you connect the dots back to 1, the global strategy, and 2, the action plans that every participant in the course is now tasked with developing in a very short time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so thank you very much for your presentation. There were a number of very important challenges and action plans included there. One thing I will pick out to expand upon is that in the possible solutions for the sustainable financing, there was mention of developing a tool to demonstrate to the government that they have sufficient financing. So I thought this was very interesting because it means that for the issue, the general issue of sustainable financing, which could have so many reasons why, this group really thought about what is the problem in this particular context. And it sounds like here, it might be that the government is saying they don't have the money. In other contexts, the government may not know about surveillance. There may not have been advocacy, so they even know that it's an issue. Then there would be a different solution. But if in your country context, the issue is that the government knows about it and says they don't have money, then this is a very specific situation to address that issue. So that again ties with the surveillance strategy and also to the action plan that you're doing to really think deeply about what exactly is the issue in your context and provide specific examples. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Let's now go to Mersha Gorfu, is going to be the next presenter presenting for Group 7. Mersha, I've asked you to unmute, and you, of course, are welcome to share your screen to show the notes you took as rapporteur. Mersha is not responding, so let's go to Group 8, Abdunasir Mohamed Elmi. All right, Abdunasir, are you ready to present? I'm asking you to unmute as well. For Group 8, Abdunasir is not responding either.
Yes. Thank you very much. I'm ready.
Okay, please go ahead and share your screen. If you were the rapporteur, you should be the one with the Word document. Yes. Okay, yes. Wonderful.
Yes.
The floor is yours.
Yes, my name is Abdel Nasser Ilmi, and I'm the rapporteur of my group. My group consists of 8 members, and here are the names of the members. If I go to the challenge that the group has discussed, and as I'm the surveillance officer in Puntland state of Somalia, our problem of discussion was poor surveillance capacity in Puntland in Somalia, and the owner of this challenge is Abdel Nasser and Muhammad Ilmi. When it comes to the thematic areas of this surveillance training, we started with the workforce. Surveillance systems are very weak in terms of the staff number and technical capacity of the staff. Also, we have there is also has high staff turnover, as there are no sufficient resources to finance the surveillance activities in the state. When it comes to the laboratory, there is a recently established referral lab in Puntland state, but so far the lab does not cover all vaccine preventable disease. Only basically testing is done in the lab. Other diseases, for example, AFP surveillance testing is done in Nairobi, Somalia. The whole Somalia do not test or do not do AFP. Polio lab testing in Somalia. So we ship the samples to Nairobi to Cambridge lab for the laboratory processing. Also, we have problems with the transportation mechanisms of the samples from the far areas, especially the hard to reach areas or even in the inaccessible areas. Also, there is inadequate capacity for lab staff. When it comes to information systems, we don't have integrated information systems for vaccine preventable diseases. Only AFP surveillance system use its own information system, but other diseases are incorporated in the E1 systems for other diseases. Also, there is a delay in information feedback. And about the applied research, we have a gap in this area. We have inadequate research in applied research. This is really a problem in Somalia. When it comes to sustainable financing, our problems include a lack of government financing in vaccine preventable diseases. Surveillance systems are financed mainly by organizations, especially WHO. And the goal of our challenge is to improve a workforce in terms of training in surveillance. Core competencies include case detection, investigation of cases, and also investigation of vaccine preventable disease outbreaks. Due to the limited time allocated for the discussion, we have been still working on this, but I go to the next point. The concrete action points the group discussed included development of the capacity for the staff, for surveillance staff, by training them on the key competencies of the surveillance core functions. Also, the actions include expanding laboratory capacity to cover all vaccine preventable diseases. And another point is the integrate surveillance data management systems for all vaccine preventable diseases. And also, and finally, improve the government involvement in surveillance financing to increase government ownership. That's our group.
Thank you, Abdel Nasser Mohammed Elmi. Let's go to Anna Minta now for some quick feedback.
Yes, so thank you very much, group, for your presentation. I understand the time was short, so it's okay that you didn't get through everything. The point that was raised is very applicable to the surveillance strategy about workforce capacity is extremely important. For the concrete action to increase the capacity, that is very good. And the next step for you all, if you have an issue like this for your action plan, again, is to think of how would you do that in your context with your action plan that you could take to your subnational or national EPI or surveillance program. What specifically could you tell them could be possible ways to do this? I also just wanted to acknowledge that you mentioned reaching out to your neighboring country for lab support, which is very interesting to me. And I think there could be some linkages that could be made there for capacity, workforce capacity as well. So that's something to consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Now let's go to the last group that will present today, and that's group 4, Brenda Harrier. So Brenda, asking you to unmute. Yes, and Brenda's ready. I saw group 7, it wasn't Mersha Gorfu, but Dr. Alam. We'll see if there can be another opportunity to present. But Brenda, over to you.
I'm ready. I'm requesting that that Mohammed shares,
yes.
so I'm able to share my screen.
Yes, all right. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So this is group 4, and group 4 in here are the members of group 4, we're 8. The challenge that was identified by the group is sustainable financing for BPDs. This was raised by Dr. Muhammad from Nigeria, Dr. Akashi from Pakistan, Proskovia Kakoza, and Brenda from Uganda. And to go, okay. I'll get to the summaries of the challenge. So it's been raised that the main funding for surveillance activities is from partners and WHO. Then surveillance depends on polio funding. Yet funding is polio activities are winding out in Nigeria, which imposes a risk for continuity of polio surveillance activities. That's a case in Nigeria. And then for Pakistan, majorly also funding is by in surveillance activities is by polio, and this is also winding out, and it's completely a vertical program as it's been raised. This is no different from a case in Uganda. When we get to the specific goal, identified is to have sustainable funding for AFP and other VPD surveillance through government and partners. Experience is shared by other group members about the same challenge, where that there's lack of dedicated surveillance staff, which majorly roots from the financing directed to surveillance. There is no specific funding for surveillance activities. This was also raised, somewhat similar with the above point. Surveillance activities are majorly donor, financing of surveillance activities is majorly donor-based. Surveillance work is left for partners, so there is no ownership of surveillance activities by the government partner, the government officials. And another member raised that sustainable financing as a challenge. It cuts across generally. The actions which were proposed by group members, one is multi-sector budgeting, where different sectors at national level and national level, regional, come together and raise the gaps in the departments, and then have surveillance or IDSR also integrated. Use of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats tools to assess the existing IDSR system, and this can be used as a base to lobby for funding, integration and resource pooling at national level, advocacy for specialized disease surveillance program, and result-based financing. That's what we're able to put together as group 4. Over to you, Reda.
Great, thank you very much indeed. Anna, final, and this will be the last presentation for today. We're going to give you two critical pieces of information, two critical steps that you need to complete as soon as you can in order to stay in the course. But first, the feedback from Anna.
Yes, thank you. Another great presentation. I appreciate all of the group work that you did. This challenge is in line with the surveillance strategy, and we definitely need to think of ways to improve the sustainable financing. I see several concrete actions here which seem like they can be implemented, and so it would be good as you're doing your action plan to think more about which of these may be appropriate for you or other examples that would work for your particular setting. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. And so before we go any further, I believe for all the groups, even if your group did not present, a well-deserved round of applause before I tell you what is going to happen next in the next session, and what you have to do before tomorrow morning's session, or tomorrow morning or afternoon or evening, whatever the case may be. So here we have your next steps. So each individual participant needs to submit the session 1 report. You're going to say, well, what is the session 1 report? I'm going to give you the link to access the report, and this is individual. This is not the notes from your group. Second, the rapporteurs, so only the rapporteurs, the note takers, will submit the notes that they took on behalf of their group. And now, remember that we have a final 30-minute session after the session 1 is formally over, in which you're welcome to stay in order to socialize. We'll be putting you back into the breakout groups. And perhaps if you wish, you can also use this as an opportunity to do further work on your, before submitting your notes. And then, of course, step 3, and this is the most important. Remember that this course is not about these informal discussions in Zoom. The informal discussions in Zoom, the group work that you're doing, are really to help you think through your own action plan. And there is a very short deadline. It is the 14th of July. So in 72 hours, we expect you to have done the best that you can writing your action plan using the rubric. So it is not a creative writing exercise. You will find a structured, detailed rubric with instructions on what you should do. So first is the individual report for session 1. So this link is right here. So this is on the honor system. You will find that we ask you how much you were able to attend. Now we do verify this against Zoom records, but we also like to think that we can and should trust you in self-reporting your attendance. Now, we also look at the quality of the reporting. So some people who are in a hurry and just say yes in response to a qualitative question may find themselves disqualified from certification simply because they did not take a minute to actually write out an answer to the question that's being asked. So that is quite important. And then second is for the rapporteurs. How do you submit your group discussion notes? So I'm going to share here the, let me try to make sure there are, so the links are, the individual links are labeled. So here, this is only if you are a rapporteur. And this is the individual report for session 1. So I thought Charlotte would have these ready already. Yes, she does. Okay, I knew it. So the individual report, we ask you some simple questions about today, and this is also to help us improve. And then the critical thing is to actually, check your submission. You want to make sure you're dependent on your rapporteur. So Charlotte has shared a second link, which is check your submission and view other groups' discussion notes via the link. Now, I'm going to quickly demonstrate how that actually works. When you type the link, I need to figure out how to get to a browser. I'm probably going to, just give me 1 second to, here. So when you come to this, when you use the Dropbox link, so this is only for rapporteurs. I'll show you, maybe I should show the, I'll go back and show the individual report for session 1. Click on add file. You just add a file from the computer. And in my case, I'm just doing a demo. So you click on upload to select the file and then click on upload. You do not need a Dropbox account. I'm signed into Dropbox, but you actually don't need that. And that is how you submit your rapporteur template. You'll be asked for your name. So we know, but that is already in the Word file. And then with respect to the individual report for session 1, I'll also show you what that looks like. So that's a simple Google form. And here, again, we ask you for the level of attendance, the name of your rapporteur, the room number that you spent the most time in today, the challenge that your group worked on, we ask you to then classify that challenge, and then some feedback on the learning experience today. So I believe that is it. The last thing to do is to explain to you what to expect in tomorrow's session. Today, it was, in fact, the warm-up in order for you to become familiar with the methodology so you understand what it means to work in breakout groups, how the discussion is organized so that there is a written record and we know who participates and what the and who actually contributes to the discussions. So tomorrow at 8:30, this is all Geneva time. If you're not sure what the local time is, just ask Google. You can say, what time is it in Geneva? And you can compare that to the time it is in your location. So we'll do 30 minutes. We'll do some review. And also we'll spend some time in the breakout rooms. Now, this will be for the purpose of, so it'll be for social purpose. And then we'll kick off the formal session with feedback on session 1, on the experience of session 1. We'll do more looking into the best practices and lessons learned on VPD surveillance. We'll do more on action planning. That's when we'll actually introduce formally the peer-reviewed exercise, what the exercise is about and how to complete it. We'll go into a second itch session where there you will have an option to continue working on your initial challenge or take on a new one, depending. Now, you may not have a choice if you get dropped into a different group. That can happen. And then we'll have group presentations again. And this time we'll have tomorrow, we'll have 2 itch sessions with the group presentations in between. So that's, remember, this is intended to support you with the development of your action plan, which is the main feast in the course. So now we are done for session 1. And for Abdirazak Yusuf, who does not remember his group number or rapporteur name, we did say you should be able to see, if at least you remember the name of your rapporteur, you can use the links to find the groups and determine the group number that you participated in. Do pay attention to the details. So now we're 2 minutes over time. I apologize for that. What we're going to do now with the 30-minute session, so formally session 1 is now finished. We do want to give you an opportunity to go back to the breakout rooms with one small difference, and it's an important one, is that you'll be able to choose the room you want to go to. So you can go back if you wish to work with your group, to do more work on your rapporteur notes or to finalize them. You can do that, but you can also go to another room and meet other participants in the group. So we'll do that for the next, let's say, 27 minutes. That way we'll honor the time that was announced. All right, so the one option you'll see, you have an option by clicking on the breakout group option. Let me just show you what that looks like. By clicking on the little breakout room icon, you'll see that you can now navigate from one group to the next, okay? Whereas when we have you doing group work, you're stuck in the room that you've been assigned to. Here we go. And of course, for those of you who need to leave, the session 1 is officially over.